everybody, I wanted to record a video walking you through the process of what happens in a Writing Center tutorial. This will give you an idea if you've never been tutored before, if you've never tutored before, what the parts are, how you kind of navigate it, and what they typically look like. If you want more details about what I talk about today, you have resources. For example, Chapter 2 in your Bedford Guide covers a lot of really good examples of questions that you can ask your client in a Writing Center tutorial, and they also sketch out kind of the parts, so like the agenda and things like that. So if you want more, it is there for you. So these are the parts of an in-person Writing Center tutorial. I'll be talking about online stuff also, but this is for in-person Writing Center tutorial. A lot of this will apply to online tutoring, so that's when you have a live chat with a person. But when it comes to the asynchronous e-tutoring option, it's going to be a little different, and we'll talk about that later. So the parts of an in-person Writing Center tutorial, first you start with chit-chat and introductions, then you get into orienting and agenda setting, reading aloud, collaborative feedback and writing and revising time, debriefing time, and what you could do in another session. So these are the parts that I want you to focus on within that block of time that you have reserved for a tutorial. First, I want you to start with chit-chat and intros. Ask them about themselves. Ask them if they have a preferred nickname, a major and a minor, things they like studying, classes they're taking, how that's going, maybe where they're from, any writing experiences that they want to talk about. So like, how has writing gone for you in the past? And maybe you have something in common. And you can talk about that. This is really important because it establishes rapport and connection. A lot of students who come to the center might feel a little intimidated to talk about their writing with someone else, particularly a stranger. And this kind of helps to give you some connection, make them a little bit more comfortable, break the ice a little bit, and, you know, make them feel a little more comfortable with sharing their writing with you, because sharing writing is scary, especially if you're not used to it and if you've never been to a writing center before. So do some chit chat at the beginning. Don't take too long, but, you know, give them a chance to kind of talk to you. Then comes the orienting and agenda setting stage. This is when you cover what brings them to the Writing Center today. So you can ask them that question if you want. There's a lot of listening during this portion. If they are feeling stressed out, there might be a lot of venting going on. They might tell you a lot about the class, what they don't like about the professor, the other students. Make sure that you're not like also trash talking with them. You can listen to their venting. You can commiserate with them in general. You can talk about things that have frustrated you as a writer in the past, but be careful not to say specific things about professors or students, because we want to remain professional. This is also when you cover the context for the assignment or the task. You can read over the requirements together. You can ask them any follow-up questions about the assignment to help them think a little bit more about it. But this is where you kind of set the context for the purpose of their writing, right? So like, what are they aiming for? Make sure next that they give you any assignment-specific concerns that they have. So if, you know, the assignment doesn't make sense, if the questions are confusing, if the parameters are confusing, this is where you can kind of walk through what it's asking them. You can help them parse the assignment guide a little bit. You can also talk about general writing concerns that they might have, things that they know that they've struggled with in the past. This is a good time to kind of get that out of them. If they don't have the assignment, try to find it. So if they have a laptop on them, go to the Blackboard site, try to locate the assignment, have them go into their email and look for it. If it's hard copy, look for it. Otherwise, they can just tell you, but this is not ideal, particularly because what they understand might be different than what their professor is asking. So try the best you can to find the assignment. If you can't find it, they can try to just tell you, but again, not ideal. Set goals and agenda. Be specific. Give them an idea for what you might have time to accomplish today. This will be different depending on if you have a half-hour or a 1-hour appointment time. Just to kind of manage their expectations. Sometimes they come in with like a 15-page paper and they assume that you'll be able to look at the entire thing. But you won't, probably. If you have 30 minutes, that's just unrealistic. So give them an idea of what you could cover, maybe a particular section or a number of pages. If they seem kind of laser focused on you fixing their grammar, which is going to happen because of misconceptions that people have about the work of a writing center, just kind of breathe. It's okay. It's going to happen. But I promise you'll find other things as you look at the paper together as you go. Okay, so say something like, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on patterns of error as we go. But let's take a look first and see together, right? And usually after that, they're like, all right, well, that's fine. And they'll be okay with looking at the paper as a whole. Next comes reading out loud. This is something that I want you to do in a Writing Center tutorial, okay? So this is where you ask them to read the paper out loud. If they are feeling resistant, say that it's a policy. That's just something we do here, is what I usually say. This is so you can both take it in at the same time. So they're not just kind of sitting passively while you're quietly reading their stuff. If it's really long, make sure that you manage your time, okay? So you can only do so much in one session. Reading aloud does take some time. If they want, you can focus on a specific section, but it is still really important to read it out loud. It is better if they read it. This is because it helps them hear things differently. It helps them use their brain differently. They can see it from a different perspective than they would if they were just kind of mired in the paper staring at it. They're typically kind of stuck in their context because they've probably been thinking about it for a long time, and reading it out loud really helps them hear things differently, pick up on things that don't sound right. Sometimes you'll find that they'll stop as they're reading and fix something themselves. That will happen, not always, but when it does, it's pretty exciting. If they stop to ask questions as they go and want to talk about it as they go, that's fine. That works for them, right? If they're really talkative, and they want to do the session that way. I'm fine with that, okay? Adjust as you go. If they won't read it out loud, some of them just are like, no, I'm not going to do that. Then you read it for them, okay? But somebody's got to read it out loud, okay? You reading out loud is still helpful. They can still hear something, right? You can still read it together. It'll be a little different, but it's still helpful. So if you want to read it for them, that's okay too. Non-native English speakers. Sometimes this is less effective for them because they don't have the same ear for hearing English errors as you might. There are exceptions to this. I've had many non-native English speakers in tutorials that love reading out loud and pick things out that don't sound right. But, you know, you never know. Just know that that's a population of student that you might come across that, you know, it might not work as well. And if that's the case, feel free to read for them. Then comes the meat of the tutorial. This is where the collaborative feedback begins. I say collaborative because I want the client to be involved in this process. This is also any writing and revising time. So what you want to do first when you're done reading aloud, ask them first if they noticed anything as they read. Okay, start with what they noticed because you'll be surprised what they might have picked up on reading it out loud with you that they may not have noticed when they were reading it quietly to themselves before they came to the session. Okay, so start with what they think. If a conversation doesn't naturally start from that, you can start in with your feedback. What I usually try to do is I start with what they're doing well, okay? Something that you had liked or admired as a reader. It just helps them feel a little bit more comfortable instead of just starting with things that they could work on. You start with something good, right? It makes them feel good, and then they feel a little bit more receptive for feedback. Then you want to hone in on some specifics. Try to your best to frame it from the perspective of a reader or an audience, okay? This helps you kind of remove yourself from the judgment process and just makes them think about things in terms of a reader, okay? So you could say something like, as a reader, I'm a little confused in this section here. Take another look and see what you think. How many ideas are in this paragraph? And have them kind of talk that through. Do you think they all connect to each other? What would you say the topic sentence is? So these are examples of questions that you can ask if you find that they have a paragraph that's sort of all over the place. It's really disorganized. Maybe it's too short, doesn't make sense. And then once you decide those answers together, you can talk about how to revise it. So, ask a lot of questions when you're giving your feedback. Point out places where you felt a little confused or a little lost as a reader, and talk through with them what they think it might be that tripped you up, okay? And then if they can't, you can tell them. Make sure that they're taking notes while this is happening. A lot of them forget to do that, and then they leave the session and have no idea what to do. You take notes too, because you have to write a client report form at the end of the session. So just make sure that they're taking notes and you're taking notes as well. Just highlights on what you're covering. It should ideally feel like a conversation, because writing centers are supposed to be collaborative spaces where you involve the writer in the feedback process. This should not be something where you are giving them directive feedback or telling them what to do. You should be involving them in that. So it should be a back and forth exchange, ideally. Feel free to also have them do some writing. This is a good way to get them involved in the session too. If you feel like they're just being really resistant and not giving you anything, give them some quiet time to do some writing, okay? So maybe there's a paragraph that they haven't written yet that they were planning on doing. You could have them write it right in the session, okay? Or maybe they need to redo a paragraph, have them rewrite it, all right? Give them 5 minutes. If they feel weird having you watch them, just go get some water or go walk around the library or do whatever you need to do to get out of the way for a couple minutes so they can do that and then come back and talk about what they wrote together. That is fine. And it's a good use of your time. If they have no paper, which will often happen, you can just have a conversation. You can help them with understanding the assignment. So maybe it's complicated and they need help understanding what it's actually asking them. You could help them brainstorm a topic if they have no ideas. You could talk about things that they're interested in. What do they like reading about? What do they like? What kinds of movies do they like? What kinds of TV shows do they like? Talk a little bit about their lives and how they could brainstorm a topic. You could create an outline or an idea map together. That helps them kind of organize their ideas holistically to see what their paper might look like. You could do some research together. I've done that a lot in tutorials, where if they just know they need to gather sources and they don't know where to start, go to the library website and check out the databases together. You could also create a work schedule for them if they have trouble with time management. If they have a big writing deadline, you could move backward from that deadline and talk about the steps that they need to do to get there. So you could talk about how long does it typically take you to write a page, and then you can kind of go from there and map it out week by week or day by day. You could also take some time to discuss a difficult reading. If it's something complicated that they're having trouble with and they know they need to write about it, you could take a look at some specific sections together and try to parse out what it means and talk a little bit about what they have to say about the reading. Oftentimes students have problems with understanding their reading first, and so it's hard to kind of connect what they have to say about it because they don't comprehend what exactly they just read. So you can always talk about reading too. And then you want to debrief. So allow for at least 5 minutes at the end for a debrief. If you have less than that, that's fine. Just make sure you're doing it. Cover what you talked about today. Give them the highlights. What were our goals? What did we accomplish together? You want to take a look at your notes here when you do this. And then give them something to do next. Okay, so what do you think you'll do next now that we talked about all these things? Give them reminders if they need, so they have some clear takeaways, okay? Then I want you to steer it back to the possibility of another appointment, okay? We want to make sure that we're getting those hours in, but also it's good for you because you can see them progress over time, and it's good for them too because they can grow. So say something like, if we were to have another appointment next week, we could work on XYZ. We don't have time to get to that today, but if we met again next week, we could talk about blah, 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 right? You could even pull up the scheduling software and do it right there, okay? So try to sneak that in at the end, and then obviously thank them for coming in, all right? So that's kind of the overview of what happens in an in-person tutorial. If you have any questions about this, please let me know.